Thank you so much for having me here today at this wonderful festival to talk about some of the ideas in my book, The Future of Reputation. This book is about how gossip, shame, and reputation are being transformed by the internet in ways that are going to have profound implications for the future of our society. I became interested in this topic in 2005 when I started blogging, and I was one of the co-creators of this blog, Concurring Opinions, and I really fell in love with blogging. I enjoyed the interaction with an audience. People were reading things that I was writing. I could get instant feedback. I really thought this was a wonderful experience, and I still continue to blog to this day. Well, I'm not alone. In fact, many people are blogging. This is Technorati, a site that tracks the growth of blogs, what's known as the blogosphere, the collective blogs in the world. A few years ago, about 50 blogs are in existence. Today, there are well over 50 million blogs. And I think these developments are quite amazing. The internet is leading to a world of greater freedom and greater self-realization as everyone is now able to express themselves and communicate to other people. But there's a dark side to this story, and that's what I want to talk to you about. I begin my book with a story that begins with a person who is known as the dog poop girl. And you might not have heard of her, but she's quite famous. Millions of people know who she is. This story begins in South Korea on a subway train. There's a young woman, and she has a little dog with her. The dog poops on the train. She's in a hurry. She doesn't have time to clean it up, and she leaves the train. Well, naturally, people thought this was quite rude of her to do this. Normally, they would just tell her this is rude, but someone had a cell phone and they had a camera on their cell phone. They snapped her photo and put it online. Other people started to find personal details of her life and then also put that online as well. And so this is one of the pictures of her and some of the information about her life. They labeled her a villain. They started writing all sorts of attacks against her online. And this is happening in South Korea. In fact, it makes the mainstream news in South Korea. People, the newspapers talk about the story. People start blogging about it, writing about it, creating mock posters of her in South Korea. It goes worldwide. It goes beyond the borders of South Korea. She becomes a worldwide sensation. It was written about in newspapers in many different countries, including the Washington Post in Washington, D.C., where I live. It was written about everywhere. This is one example of how the internet is changing our way of life. In the past, this kind of incident would have received an angry glance. People might have said something to her, been angry at her, but it would have been quickly forgotten. But today, the internet allows a cyber posse to amass from around the world to mete out a punishment. Forever, this woman's rudeness is going to be preserved on the internet. She will never escape it. In fact, she actually had to drop out of her university because she got a lot of threats against her and her family because of this incident. So life today is presenting us with a paradox. Information flows freely, and that's enhancing our freedom and autonomy, but at the same time, I believe it's making us less free. How and why is this happening? That's what I want to discuss with you for a little bit. Well, when I blog and when my co-bloggers blog, we write primarily about legal issues. I'm a law professor. I like to talk about law. And there are other blogs that talk about other academic issues, political issues, current events. But these are only one fraction of the blogosphere. A very large number of blogs talk about, or consist of people talking about their personal lives. This is a diary. People used to tuck their diaries away in drawers. They used to, diaries used to actually have locks. There'd be a lock and key on the diary. Well, let me tell you, diaries are so 20th century. Because now what people are doing is they're using the internet as a diary. Their computers, they're putting information about themselves online, writing about their personal lives and their happenings on their social network websites, on blogs. And when they write about their personal lives, it's not just their secrets that they're revealing. Because our lives are intertwined with the lives of other people. And when people write about their lives, they're also revealing information about their families, their friends, their enemies, their coworkers, bosses, teachers, students, and more. When I was in high school and college, I didn't have a website of my own. I didn't have a blog. There wasn't anything called MySpace or Facebook or other social network websites. I owned a computer that looked like this. In fact, and I looked like this. Back in these ancient days, life was very hard. But the generation currently growing up, they have blogs and they have social network websites. And in the book, I put this great cartoon, which I love. And the cartoon says, well, yes, we could read your blog, or you could just tell us about your school day. Now, according to one estimate, over half of blogs are written by children and teenagers under the age of 19. So I want you to do something for me. If you can close your eyes and think back to all the things that you did in high school, all the things that you did in college that you want to forget. Well, most likely, you're lucky it has probably been forgotten, and that's because it was stored in this device. But when it's online, it doesn't disappear. And thanks to Google, anybody can easily dig it up from around the world. We're witnessing what I like to call Generation Google. The next generation will have all these information fragments about themselves online, and will be forced to live with this detailed record of their lives, beginning with childhood, that's going to stay with them forever. Wherever they go, they might go far away to a different country, all the way around the world, but it'll still be searchable and accessible wherever they might be, by their employers, by other people who might want to know them. They will never escape this information. Let me tell you a little bit of another story, another anecdote about a true story about what can happen to people online and their lives. It's actually a very sad story. There's humor in it, but it's also sad. It's a story of someone who is known as the Star Wars Kid. Some of you might have heard about this incident. There was a 15-year-old kid from Canada. He filmed himself waving around a golf ball retriever, pretending it was a lightsaber from the Star Wars movies. And unfortunately for him, he did not have Hollywood choreographers. He did not have George Lucas to help him out. So he did this, and it was rather awkward. It was rather humorous. It was rather funny, the way he bumbled about with this pretend lightsaber. Well, other kids from his school found it, this video, put it online, and in just a few weeks, he became a worldwide sensation. Millions of people downloaded this video. Millions commenting on it, writing about it in just a matter of weeks. Then some people thought, let's play with this video. They added special effects. They added Star Wars music. They made the lightsaber glow. They dubbed in villains. They made all sorts of versions of this with different special effects. I did a search of YouTube. Here's some of the videos. I couldn't even get them all on the same screen. Some of the versions of his video that people made, different mashups of this Star Wars Kids video. If you do a search for this person's real name, you will get a Wikipedia entry on him and the Star Wars Kid. You will get thousands and tens of thousands of blogs writing about this kid. He will never live this down. Whenever someone Googles his name, the first thing about him is, "You're the Star Wars Kid." And that is his claim to fame. And unfortunately for him, there are people who really embrace their day of infamy, and they will go around the world. They make the album of themselves singing badly and whatever. But for this poor kid, he didn't like being teased. He was teased at his school. Imagine being teased by essentially the entire world. And actually, as a result, he had some problems. He had to drop out of school. He needed counseling. And he would never escape this humiliating episode from his past. Well, we're starting to see the future of reputation. And one question I want to pose to you is whether the transformation of gossip into something that's indelible, something that's widespread and very accessible, is this a problematic development? The reason I ask this question is there are a number of people who say no. In fact, it's good that we have more information about each other online. We should celebrate having more information about people's lives. No longer will people be able to hide their discreditable secrets. We'll be able to Google them and make better judgments about who they really are. One of the prevailing mottos or mantras of the information age is that more information is better. But I want to submit that more information is not always better. Personal information taken out of context can lead to hasty and unfair judgments that don't necessarily lead to more truth about a person's character. And I think, ironically, the libertarian norms of the internet, the let everyone be free, the internet is a place of radical freedom, I actually think these norms, ironically, lead to a world of more oppression and control. Question is, will we enslave ourselves to our past by making it impossible to escape from mistakes that we might have made when we were young or many, many years ago? That could lead to being less free, in fact, having less opportunities, and being trapped from things that we might have done a decade in the past. Well, I'm a law professor, and so I tend to think about, well, what can the law do to solve this problem? Is there anything we can do in terms of structuring a legal system to respond to these developments? And as I see it, there are three broad paths that the law can take. The first is what I call the libertarian approach. This is a hands-off approach. The idea here is to keep the law out of it. It's very hard to regulate anything related to the internet, to what people are doing online, and therefore the law should stay away. I think this is a flawed approach, and the reason I think it's flawed is that doing nothing, this is what essentially this is. It's not doing anything. And the problem is that if the norms of the internet spiral out of control, if they don't develop in ways that we desire, a lot of people could be hurt. A lot of people could face fewer opportunities in the future because of what is going on. Now, there's another approach on the other end of the spectrum, and that is the authoritative approach. And increasingly, we see schools trying to ban the use of social network websites, politicians and various government officials trying to propose policies that restrict what people might want to say online, or from being able to blog or use social network websites. The problem with this approach is that these rules are too rigid, they're stifling, they're oppressive. I think they're too restrictive of free speech. So what I recommend is a middle ground where the law should operate as an incentive to force people to work disputes out informally. And the primary goal of the law should be prevention. It should be about educating people, encouraging people, incentivizing people to recognize that they should be careful about spreading gossip and rumor online. And so the law needs to spark that more critical self-awareness of what people are writing about each other on the internet. One of the problems, though, that is holding the law back currently is that the law is laboring under outmoded understandings of privacy. The understandings of privacy that many judges and policymakers have is a flawed understanding, a limited understanding that I don't think works for our times today. And so I want to talk briefly about how we can rethink privacy in order to start to make more headway in addressing some of these problems. Now, the first aspect of privacy I want to talk about is something that it's a traditional and I think antiquated understanding of privacy. It's viewing privacy in a rather binary manner, seeing the world as divided into two realms, the public and the private. And the idea here is that if something's in private, it's in your home, it's completely hidden, therefore it's private. But the minute it's exposed to the public, if it appears in the public domain, therefore it is no longer private. Currently, at least in the United States, the law tends to have this approach and take a radical approach that says if any exposure in public of information happens, you're not going to have privacy. The EU actually has, I think, a much more progressive and modern understanding of privacy and will recognize privacy in public in a number of cases. This is the European Court of Human Rights. So I think Europe is actually really ahead of the game in this front. But the point here is that information today is rarely purely public or private. Our activities often take place in the twilight between public and private. So suppose a person's buying medication in a drugstore. They're in public. People are seeing what they might be buying at the drugstore, the various hygiene items and medications they might be buying. However, that doesn't mean that they don't have expectations that this information is private. So imagine a blogger who has a blog, what people bought at the drugstore. And they go around with a camera taking a picture of you and all the things in your cart at the drugstore and then put it up online. I think there's an invasion of privacy there, even though there are other people at the drugstore can see what you're doing. Because there's a difference between that, where we're relatively unknown and no one knows us at the drugstore, versus putting it online, identifying us, making it accessible to the entire world. There's a difference in degree of accessibility there, and that's what the law needs to recognize, that privacy is not all or nothing. It's about degrees of accessibility of information. Now, there's another traditional notion of privacy, and that is that privacy is tantamount to secrecy. And under this, what I think is an increasingly archaic notion, the view is that if you tell a secret or tell information to another person, it's no longer private. And therefore, if you want to keep something private, don't tell anybody. The problem with this is we expose so much information to other people as we go about our daily lives. And it's really difficult in today's information age, where so many people have access to our information, where we must share information with businesses and companies and other people, to keep something completely private. And so the law should be better at recognizing notions of confidentiality, that when you give information to another people, you shouldn't expect that they might betray you. You expect that they keep it confidential. If the law enforces that, I think we can make more headway in how we understand privacy and how we protect privacy when people are spreading each other's secrets online. The final thing I want to talk to you about is one of the major themes of this conference. It's about control. And I want to begin by talking about a story involving Dr. Laura Schlesinger. She's a very famous radio talk show host in the United States. She is very conservative. She preaches family values. She preaches strong morality. There was an incident where some nude photos of her from a lover that she had 20 years in the past were circulated on a video voyeur website. Apparently this person had taken these photos, decided he needed money, sold them to this website. So now the website owns the videos, these photos, and posted them online. Well, Dr. Laura didn't like this. She tried to get these photos taken down. She sued the website saying, "Take down my photos." The court said, "Sorry, but you lose on free speech grounds. We will not let you stop this site from disseminating the photos." Well, other websites said, "We like these photos too, so let's copy these photos and post them ourselves." And they started posting the photos. Well, the video voyeur website said, "We don't like that. We bought the photos. We own the photos." They sued the other websites. And guess what? They won. And the reason they won is that they have copyright protection in the photos. When someone takes a photo of you, you get privacy rights. The taker of the photograph gets intellectual property rights, they get copyright. And if you have a choice between privacy rights and copyright, let me tell you, without thinking, choose copyright, because the law protects copyright very strongly. It has an elaborate set of protections for copyright, but privacy less so. And I raise this point because what's often said in privacy debates, what I often hear is, if information is out there, there's nothing the law can do. It's really hard to protect privacy. The law just cannot do it. Information is out of control, and nothing can rein it in. And I point to copyright law, not to say that privacy should be protected like copyright. I point to it because it's an example of how the law seeks to control information and actually does manage to control information, including information that is accessible or already out there. I mean, my book is out there. I still have copyright protection in it. And so the law does and can protect privacy if we recognize that privacy is about managing and controlling information, not just about keeping secrets. There's a lot more that I could talk to you about, and I hope we can touch on some of these issues, other issues in the Q&A. This is basically a brief overview of some of the ideas in my book. There's some good news. At this website, futureofreputation.com, my publisher allowed me to post the book for free. So you can go to this site and read the entire book for free. There's no charge. It's available under a Creative Commons license. So if you're interested in some of these afterwards, I encourage you to take a look at the book. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Daniel Solove.